This is the first multi-stage rocket that I have built in Kitten Space Agency, but getting there was not easy. Let me tell you how this happened. Hello everybody and welcome! A little while ago the developers of Kitten Space Agency have announced that now multi-stage rockets are a thing in their pre-alpha version of the space simulation game that they are working on at Team Rocket Works over in New Zealand and Australia and all around the world actually. The team is pretty spread around everywhere. And since I promised all of you guys who are subscribed to this channel, if you haven't yet, please click that button below to stay in the loop what's going on with KSA and other space simulation games. As I said, as I've promised all of you guys, I will keep you updated when some significant thing changes with this game or some new update comes around, and it did. But it's not ready for prime time yet, which is totally understandable because compared to quite a lot of other games out there which are developed in secret and you only see polished trailers and then the final thing once it's done, KSA is developed right out in the open and you see everything, warts and all, from start to finish. And you're going to see in this video some different UI elements. They are the same, sort of, but they are like arranged differently and they work a little bit differently. And this was just over the course of a couple of days when I was trying to get footage for this video. So everything you see here is probably going to be already different when this video is coming out. Alright, so multi-stage rockets. When you start up the game, you have the selection of sandbox or testing. Testing is the mode that allows you to launch a rocket immediately into orbit and fly around and explore the universe, or at least the solar system, and do some fun stuff with it. When you go for sandbox, you basically just see the Earth, and that's it. Well, you have to click on File and say Build New Vehicle, or launch an existing vehicle that you've built previously. Let's build a new one. The first time I tried this out, we had the parts menu on the left hand side. Now we have it on the bottom and we have some tabs where we can differentiate between different types of parts that we can attach here, or not really attach, but let's say work with. To keep it simple, I tried to recreate basically the main vehicle that you usually play in KSA, which is just called Rocket. So I added a capsule, I added this service bay thing, and a fuel tank and the engine. And keen-eyed viewers may have already noticed on top the staging menu or staging window where you can see what stages you have and so on. This is a little bit different than Kerbal's space program, for instance, where you have like the stage that's firing first is on the bottom and the one that's firing last is on top. Like the rocket's first launches the first stage, which is bottom of the rocket, and the second stage which is higher up, and then the third stage which is even higher up, and so on until you reach the top payload or the parachutes or whatever. Currently in KSA, it's the other way around. So basically, the stage that will fire first is on top. So from top to bottom, it goes like 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And the highest stage number is the one that is going to fire first once you launch your vehicle. That took a little bit of getting used to for me because I was still very firmly in the KSP mindset. And keep in mind, this is all work in progress. There's no guarantee that this is going to stay that way. Everything is being tested, everything is being tried out and worked on a daily basis. So basically, as I said before, everything you see here is subject to change. I'm just giving you a snapshot of where development is right now. Right now being actually a couple of days before this video releases to the general public. Because a preview version will be available for my Patreon members on the higher tiers over on my Patreon side and for the YouTube members on the highest tier here on YouTube. Okay, we have our first stage, which is basically just a couple of parts and resembles closely Rocket, except, well, the RCS clusters, which are much more intricate and functional on the actual vehicle. Honestly, I never managed to get the RCS working here. no matter what I did, or maybe I overlooked something, I wasn't able to attach an RCS cluster and make it fire. Also, if you have noticed, in order to actually use symmetry, in this way 4-way symmetry, you have to go on the top left into the menu where you have a couple of buttons, and then you have to disable connecting, which we enabled earlier so we can actually connect parts to each other. You have to enable snapping, so things will attach radially on the outside of something. And then you have to enable symmetry and have to tell the game how much symmetry you want, like 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and that's about it. And yeah, as you can see here, I wasn't able to reliably get those RCS clusters flush attached to the surface of my vehicle. In very rare instances when I experimented with this, it did work, but I have no idea why. Or rather, why not in the other cases. Oh, and my old KSP reflexes made me turn on the rotation tool, which is called the rotation gizmo here, and try to rotate everything so it would align, but that destroyed the symmetry. So yeah, there are a couple of kinks here, and as I said, this is all work in progress and we can't expect a polished product yet. Regarding the RCS clusters, in one of my experiments I tried to put every different type of RCS onto my vehicle to try out maybe there's one of these parts that works and just the couple that I usually tried don't. But as you can see here, it looks funny, but it does not work. Like a warty little spaceship without any control authority. Okay, back into building things. If we want to actually use the benefits of a multi-stage rocket, we need, of course, another stage. So let's add some interstage here. And then I realized, okay, this interstage is not long enough to really cover the engine here. And I tried out the scale tool, but then something interesting happened, because when I tried out scale tool, it would make it shorter when I used the scale tool on just that specific axis. Or rather, not just shorter, it also made it longer, of course, depending in which direction I pulled it. But then I thought, okay, now it's a little bit misaligned, maybe I can move it a bit further back, and I activated the translation tool. And it kind of removed the thing from the stack. So, yeah, a lot of weirdness still going on currently in the editor. As I said, very much work in progress. So ruling out the scale tool, I just added the other smaller fairing to make it visually more appealing or prevent the engine bell from sticking into the next tank. Which doesn't matter at the moment because there are still no collisions in Kitten Space Agency, but they will be there at one point in the future. Now, of course, we need some more fuel tanks. And then I decided to try a different engine. And because I had no idea what type of engine it is or how powerful it is, it just looked like an atmospheric rated engine because its engine bell was a lot smaller than the one of the original, not the original stage, the upper stage. So I decided to put 5 on it. And as you can see here, we also run into the symmetry attachment alignment thing I mentioned earlier that you saw with the RCS clusters. And then on the bottom left corner, you can give this vehicle a name that it will have inside the game universe. And then you can select the launch site and click launch. Activate throttle. Hit spacebar to activate the stages, and yeah, that's a lot of thrust to weight ratio. So 5 of those engines are a lot too much in this configuration. And of course, the fuel is also drained very quickly, so yeah, that's maybe not as good as we would like. So I decided that 1 engine would be enough for the upper stage, plus 2 tanks and just 1 engine, as I said, and then I would add another stage, which is now the 3rd stage I'm building, but actually the 1st stage that's going to fire. And here I wanted to make it a lot bigger, so I made a stack of 5 fuel tanks and once more one of those atmospheric level engines. And then I decided to, hey, maybe I can just use symmetry to add a tank and engine stack to the center core. I haven't found a way to copy just segments of a rocket, like in Kerbal Space Program you hold the Alt key and click on something and it will duplicate everything from that point onwards. Here you can right-click on the vehicle you're building and select Copy Tree and it would copy everything. But from there you can unattach, detach? I think detach is the correct word. From there you can detach those parts that you actually need and then utilize them later on. So I picked 3 fuel tanks and the engine and wanted to attach it in a 6-way symmetry, and the game crashed. Alright, so I had to do it manually for all the 6 engines. And of course some more of the fuel tanks. So basically what I did, I added 6-way symmetry with fuel tanks around the center stack and then added more fuel tanks to that and added the engines to that. What's currently also a little bit annoying is that the game appears to be not really certain when to put what into which stage. Not something I'm complaining, as I said, early days, very much work in progress. And you can change the stage that your part is on. You have to right-click on that specific part and then you can manually enter a new number of stage there. Honestly, I'm not sure if it's even necessary to put the tanks in respective changes or if it would be enough to have the engines in the stage that you want to have them in. But just to be sure, I did it anyway because I haven't found a way to load up a vessel back inside the editor once I have built it. And no, once I have launched it. Sure, you can launch a pre-built vessel, some vessel that you've built before, but when you want to edit it then, the camera will be wonky because you will stand on the surface of the Earth, or which other launch site you have picked, and the camera will kind of refuse to be as accommodating as it would be if you started out right at the beginning when the game launches. Alright, after wrangling with all of that, I managed to finally launch my 3-stage monster rocket. I mean, it's not that much of a monster. The Apollo rockets and the Starship rocket stack are a lot bigger, but it's the biggest thing I built so far in Kitten Space Agency. And even with that many tanks and that much fuel on board, those 7 atmospheric rated engines are quite a lot to propel this thing upwards. I even had to throttle down to quite a lot lower than 100%. Originally I had hoped that this would be enough to get me to the moon, but after seeing the first stage being spent so quickly already, I thought that's probably not going to happen today. Still, I decided to see how far we could get with this setup. And the second stage at least took us quite a way up out of the atmosphere, so our apoapsis would be like at 500 kilometers or more. But it also fizzled out before we could reach a stable orbit around the Earth. So my final stage that was actually thought of to go around the moon, or at least to the moon, had to do the final leg of our orbit maneuver to get into low Earth orbit. And that it did, and we still had some delta V left. So I thought, let's see how much it would take to get to the moon, and that was more than 6,000 meters per second of delta V, and I had like 2,000 or less left. So yeah, I was not going to the moon today. But hey, I did manage to get a multi-stage rocket built and flying in Kitten Space Agency, and that's a first, at least on this channel. And as I said, if this is to your liking, make sure you're subscribed to this channel for more shenanigans regarding Kitten Space Agency and updates around its development. And as alluded to before, there are some perks for people who join on Patreon or as a YouTube member. You guys are awesome, and if you join on one of the higher tiers, your name will show up here together with all of these wonderful people. thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you. And of course, I also appreciate all the hard work that the developers have put into Kitten Space Agency so far. While the game is still far away from being finished, there is progress basically daily that you can watch live. And it's all for free. So yeah, if you're interested in this, don't just take my word for it. Go grab it from the website. I'll put the link below there. And no, I don't get any royalties or incentives or fees or whatever for saying that. I just like what they're doing and I really hope that they succeed with it. Because the world deserves a great new space simulation game that steps into the footsteps of Kerbal's space program, since that property is no longer developed by anyone. Alright, so much for multi-stage rockets in Kitten Space Agency, at least for the time being. You can be sure that I will play around with this more in the future. What do you think about the current state and what you've seen here in this video? Or maybe what has already happened since the state of the game that I've showed you here? And maybe you already have a newer version and you can tell me how things have already gone better. Either way, sound off in the comments and let me know. And let also the developers know what you think about it, because some of them occasionally pop into the comment section of my videos and take your feedback. Either way, things are staying exciting for KSA and I'm going to keep my eye on it. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social thingies. The links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.